Lewis is working on his math homework using the information below. Help Lewis complete the question. Part A. Draw a group of triangles and squares that meet the following criteria. The ratio of triangles to squares is 2 to 3. There are at least 5 squares. Okay, so the ratio of triangles to squares is 2 to 3, which means if I draw 2 triangles like this and 3 squares, that definitely satisfies the first bullet point because the ratio of triangles to squares is 2 triangles to 3 squares. However, if you wrote this answer, you would be wrong because you also need to have at least 5 squares. And the problem right now is if you're like, oh, yo, let me just draw 2 more squares, now I got 5. But now, if you do that, you don't have a ratio of 2 to 3 anymore. So what you need to do is think about how to get both of these criteria to be true. If you put triangles here and squares here, you want it to be 2 to 3. If you already know the most reduced row of a ratio table, you can just roll it out. This would be 2, 4, and this 3, what would go here? Call it out if you know it. If you said 6, you'd be correct. So if you actually drew this, 4 triangles like this, and 6 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares, you would have at least 5 squares, and your ratio of triangles to squares would still be 2 to 3 because 4 to 6 reduces, if you divide both sides by 2, to 2 to 3. This is one possible answer. There are lots of others. If you kept rolling, you could have done 6 and 9, or 8 and 12. But the key point here is to meet both of the criteria, you would need to have at least 5 squares and also have a ratio of 2 to 3. For part B, you can see a response that has already been written. This is a sample response that says explain how you know the ratio relationship between triangles and squares is 2 to 3. You do not have to copy this part down, but I do want to read it to you. It says my diagram shows that the ratio relationship between triangles and squares is 2 to 3. This is because in my diagram, I drew 4 triangles and 6 squares, which is a ratio of 4 to 6. If you reduce 4 to 6 by dividing both sides by 2, you would get 2 to 3. So this is an example of a full credit response and a full credit picture for this problem.